Welcome to Cody in the Cinema. Today I thought I'd do a little tongue-in-cheek video. What does a film bro actually read? And let's face it, folks, I've been called a film bro a time or two. I mean, after all, like in my 20s, I watched Goodfellas to death. My old DVD copy of Casino, it's basically scratched to oblivion. Like, There Will Be Blood, I'm on at least my third copy of that movie. Okay? Like, I understand why people say that. I have tried to expand my taste in movies and books as well, and I've kind of developed a real taste that I like in books and so forth. And I think for a lot of us, we are reading classics or stuff that's a little bit more traditionally literary, and that might influence what we watch, especially if we're watching Criterion films. And then sometimes we might want to throw all that out of the window, and watch Sleepaway Camp. But whatever the case is, I thought this might be kind of fun. So I would love to hear book recommendations from those of you who watch movies, maybe in a similar way to how I do, or you watch a lot more than I do. And some of what I'll talk about here may or may not have a screen adaptation, but I'll make note of that. So I hope this will be useful for those of you that are kind of into both things. But, I read Housemaid of Dawn here. This is something I had to bring up as a Western fan. This is a story about a young Native American with some alcohol problems, and it's kind of spiritual, and it's kind of written in a way that's non-linear that I really appreciated. I read The American here by Henry James, and I wanted to bring a Henry James up because I've always loved this writer, and he wrote The Turn of the Screw, which I'm saving, and I meant to read that this Halloween because I think that was the inspiration for Deborah Kerr's The Innocents. And I've always loved Henry James. This is about an American who doesn't exactly fit in the old world. Good piece of literature. One that I found a copy of the movie. I found a copy of Rebecca for a few bucks at a thrift store. One of those older Blu-rays. Unbelievable that I found that because I'd read the book, and my wife read it too. We both love it. Daphne du Maurier. This is like, you got to read this if you haven't. And I haven't actually watched the Hitchcock movie yet, even though I own it. I'm going to. I know that there's at least a twist or two in here that are different from the book. So some of you all who maybe have read and or watched the movie can kind of tell me, but gosh, Rebecca's awesome. I was so inspired by the Angela Lansbury picture of Dorian Gray that I had to read the book, and I read it in the past year. I say that even though she's a small role in that, because I really loved the black and white version. I think it's from the 40s. But then I read the Oscar Wilde version here, and it's a great book. This is a Barnes & Noble copy, so I thought I'd mention that. Now, one of the reasons I'm going to eventually get a region-free player is I really want to see Elia Kazan's A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, because this is a phenomenal book about a young girl in New York growing up in poverty. I think I read this maybe 10, 11 months ago, and my wife's reading it right now, and it's just a phenomenal book about this girl growing up in this situation. Her dad also has some alcohol problems, and they just, love it. A very tender book, and gosh, there's this really good Region B version of this movie that I want to have a copy of it, but I don't have a Region free player yet. So when I taught English, I did Shane with my students, and of course I love this Western with Alan Ladd. It's a great Western, and I showed them the movie. I don't know how much they liked it, but this is like such a good copy of this book. Look at that. Love it. Let's see, I read Blood Meridian and tried to take it in and understand it. Those of you who like No Country for Old Men might recognize Cormac McCarthy there. I know Criterion has that movie coming out in their collection. I don't think this should ever have a screen adaptation. This is about some really terrifying, terrible events that happen in the Texas-Mexico border. That's one way of trying to explain it, but man, this is poetry in motion right here. This stuff, I mean, you never heard anything like it, but it won't make a good screen adaptation. So another one that I would love to see. This is I think this guy is like North Carolina or Appalachian, some kind of writer that some of you may have heard of. But Jayber Crow is the story of a barber, okay, a young man who just becomes a barber of this small town and goes through sort of interesting romance. This is, okay, calling it now. One day, you're going to see Jayber Crow be turned into a TV series. If it's a TV series, it'll get ended early because of corporate profits, but hopefully not. It'll be a movie, and it'll be a great movie, and it will be directed by someone from the A24 studio whenever they get their act together again and make good content. You're going to love it, okay? Jayber Crow, Appalachian people, you got to see it. Got to see it, got to read it. It doesn't have a screen adaptation yet. My students, my seniors, some of them got me this awesome copy of Frankenstein. And I mean, I've talked about Frankenstein on my video about the Universal Monsters collection, Mary Shelley's classic here that inspired so many good adaptations. You know what? I just noticed this copy has a heart on it. It's so good, man. It's got a heart on it. I did this with seniors as well. We didn't do the whole book, but we did segments of it, and I still think it was funny because I showed them the James Whale Frankenstein, right? And I thought they would just hate me for it, but some of them kind of got into it. They liked Boris Karloff in it. So if you are a fan of the movie, you absolutely have to read the book, even though they're not like close to the same thing most of the time. But real good classic there. I've obviously had to read that, teaching it and so forth, and probably the most like substantial book that I have not seen the movie of. I've not seen East of Eden in the last year. It has to be this book, and this is a phenomenal read. It's such an epic story of these different families and this really terrible, awful woman that ruins some lives. And it has this kind of Genesis flavor to it. Without spoiling the plot, you'll see why I say that. But I know this has, like I said, the famous film version, and I just don't own a copy. Like, I've literally never seen East of Eden, okay? So I've got to fix that, because I know that I read this in part because I planned on watching the movie, but I'd never got around to watching the movie, so I got to watch the movie. My current read, I'm reading Notes from Underground, Dostoevsky. Always can't say that. I don't think, someone will have to let me know in the comments if it has a film version, but it's what I'm reading currently. Probably won't take me very long. And then my next read, because I love both film versions I've seen, the Greta Gerwig version, which is a little bit newer, and then what I'm going to call the Winona Ryder version, because that's the first actress that comes to mind. I have never read Little Women, and I'm really looking forward to reading this, at least by hopefully Christmas, because I know that, if I remember correctly, there's some really good Christmas shots in that movie, both versions of the movie. So I'm looking forward to this, and I think my wife's going to read this too with me. So we're both going to enjoy this, and sometime after that, I am going to read, and I have been putting this off forever, Berlin Alexanderplatz, because I have the Criterion of this, and I need to read it, and, you know, it's on my to-read list. So I thought I'd go through a few things I've read in the last year and a half, just sort of have a conversation with you about that, how it relates to film, and how those things kind of go together for me. What do you think? Do you have anything you want to add to here? A book you like that influenced a movie? Ex Machina? Machina? Nah, that's not right. Okay, you see what I'm getting at. If you have something you want to share about a book-movie connection, I'd love to hear it from you. And we'll see you next time on Cody in the Cinema.